Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels Origins gameplay. Today we're taking a look at a black-green ramp deck, and some of you may recognize the deck list, as it's the deck list that I've used as an example in my Steam guide about deck building called Deckbuilding 101, where I describe some good general deck building practices and also give a walkthrough about building a deck, and I describe this particular deck. So if you're interested in reading up on this, I'll put a link to it in the description. But anyways, let's get started here. So we're talking about a ramp deck. So what a ramp deck wants is early ways to find more land, since there's not a lot of ways to actually ramp and make more mana faster in this particular game at this point. But Gatecreeper Vine is a good way to ensure that we hit our land drops every turn, because when he enters the battlefield we get to look for a basic land or a gate, and we have both in this deck, but most of the time we're gonna look for a swamp. So the O2 body is actually not that bad, since a lot of people are playing with Perilous Mirrors and this blocks that one nicely, and also is a good sacrifice effect in case our opponents are playing with Fleshbag Marauders, and we also have our own Fleshbag Marauders that we can sacrifice the Gatecreeper Vine to. So lots of interesting synergies there, and we also have Evolutionary Leap, which we'll get to in a second. Then we also have Elvish Visionary, which does pretty much the same. Instead of finding a land, this draws us a card, but also an early play that we can use as sacrifice fodder. And that's where Evolutionary Leap comes in, a very powerful enchantment where for a single green and sacrificing a creature, you basically get to look for another random creature on top of your deck and put it into your hand. So you can just replace those crappy Gatecreeper Vines and Elvish Visionaries for possibly more powerful creatures, and also works very well against opposing removal spells. If they try and kill your big creature, you can just sacrifice it and hopefully find another one. And since most of the creatures in our deck have sweet enter the battlefield abilities like the Visionary and the Vine, you can keep accumulating value. So the Evolutionary Leap is definitely one of the cards you want to see in your opening hand. Then we also have a Reave Soul as another early removal spell, just very efficient, only running 3 copies here because we already have a lot of 2-drops in this deck. Then we have Liliana, which is an awesome planeswalker in this deck, since there's a lot of sacrifice effects we have with the Evolutionary Leap with our Fleshbag Marauders. So it's very easy to transform her, and her Planeswalker of course has nice interactions with the graveyard, so works very well in this deck. Then we have of course a Fleshbag Marauder, so we can sacrifice our crappy creatures and hopefully make our opponent sacrifice their bigger creatures. And we also have the Cruel Revival package to get the Fleshbag back from our graveyard to get even more value. Then we're also playing Nissa in our deck, since she does pretty much all the things we want to do. In the early game, it's another way to find our land drops, and another body we can sacrifice to our Evolutionary Leap. And in the late game, since we are also ramping, it's going to be pretty easy to transform her, and the Planeswalker version is of course tons of value. So just an awesome card in this deck. Then we also have a one-off Reclamation Sage to go with our Woodland Bellower, to destroy the opposing Evolutionary Leaps, since they are quite heavily played right now. Then we have a Nissa's Pilgrimage, the only true ramp card that actually puts a land into play instead of in our hand, but also puts one in our hand. And with Spellmaster we get even a third one, but that's just an added bonus, it's good enough finding 2 lands. Then we have the Gravedigger for some more graveyard synergy here. Also works very well with a Cruel Revival and Fleshbag Marauder. We have a Languish as a way to beat all those swarm decks like Thopters and Elves. Then we have a Priest of the Bloodrite, which is actually pretty awesome in this deck, since we can easily sacrifice the 2/2 Priest that it leaves behind, and having a 5/5 flyer is quite powerful. And both the Priest and the Outland Colossus we can cast on turn 4 if we have a turn 3 Nissa's Pilgrimage, which is pretty powerful. And of course the Outland Colossus, probably everyone knows by now, is very powerful and pretty much has to be blocked every turn. Then we have Cruel Revival to go with our small zombie theme, and just another non-conditional removal spell, which is nice to have. And then our big finishers here are Woodland Bellower, which can find a Reclamation Sage or an Elvish Visionary or Gatecreeper Vine. And we also have Gaea's Revenge, which is very hard to deal with for most decks. And then our mana base, 9 swamps and 9 forests, 2 Woodland Cemetery, and 4 Golgari Guildgate. Alright, let's jump into some games and see how we do. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which I think is fine. We have a Visionary into Pilgrimage into Languish if we're up against an aggro deck, and hopefully by then we find a big finisher. Let's go ahead and play Forest, pause the turn. Alright, Plains and no 1-drop. Alright, let's go ahead and play our Visionary. Alright, another Guildgate. So we have all the lands we could possibly need between the lands and the pilgrimages. So all we need now is some action. Skirmisher on turn 2. And this should probably be tapped. Alright, there it is. And we draw another land, so yeah, let's go ahead and play the Pilgrimage, get 2 forests out of our deck, and move on. Alright, red-white, double strike with a Skirmisher. So we could pull the trigger on this Languish right away, but I don't think it's likely that our opponent has enough enchantments to actually make the Skirmisher survive Languish. So I think waiting a turn, since we have nothing else going on, is fine, and hope to kill one more creature with the Languish. As we draw Outland Colossus, so now I'm just gonna play him, and we can still play the Languish afterwards since he does survive it, which is one of the neat features of this deck. All of our finishers survive Languish. So hopefully we're not dead to some massive combo on the Skirmisher here, but at 18 life I find that hard to believe. So let's hope for the best. Alright, Perilous Mirror. Mildly annoying as it can actually kill the Outland Colossus if we wanna Languish. So probably gonna have to get rid of the Perilous Mirror first. And a Nimbus Wings on the Skirmisher. Oh, on the other Skirmisher. I was expecting it to be played on the Sky Hunter. So we go down to 14, 13. It's still quite acceptable. So here we want to attack first. Hope our opponent doesn't redirect 2 damage to the Outland Colossus. And then we can Languish away. Alright, that's good. So yeah, we can't play anything else this turn. So let's Languish. Get a nice 3/4/2, I guess. Play the Guildgate and pass the turn. And now we still have our Colossus in play and the Fleshbag to kill another creature. So we're not in a bad spot. Opponent has no play this turn, so could have a Celestial Flare to try and kill our Colossus. So Evolutionary Leap is actually quite nice here since we get to play it. and then attack with our Colossus. If our opponent does have Celestial Flare, we can just sacrifice it and find another creature. Instead, our opponent does not have it, which is even better. We get a 12/12, and even an act of treason from the opponent. We can just sacrifice our Colossus so we don't die to it. And let's cast our Pilgrimage, find some more lands. There's not many left. We can even get the Spell Mastery going and pass the turn. Alright, our opponent could make 2 Thopter tokens now. Alright, passes the turn. We find a Gatecreeper Vine, but let's start by attacking. Opponent makes the Thopter tokens. So now we get to play Gatecreeper Vine, play the Marauder, make our opponent sacrifices Thopter. And then we still have an activation up if we want to use it. Find another swamp. Play the Fleshbag. Sacrifice Gatecreeper Vine. And if we want to, we could sacrifice the Fleshbag to find another finisher, hopefully. Or we could just keep it in play if our opponent doesn't play any creatures, to just kill our opponent. Alright, it's not gonna steal anything. We just trade for the Fleshbag, but our opponent probably blocks the Colossus here. So we can attack first with the Fleshbag. One reason to activate Evolutionary Leap in our first main phase is for Gaea's Revenge, since that one has haste. But yeah, drawing Cruel Revival here means we just win. Kill that one. And attack. Didn't even need the value from Fleshbag getting returned from the graveyard. Alright, never mind. Fiery Impulse is one card that can actually stop us from winning here. Find another Fleshbag. Okay. So our opponent's at 1. We do want to make sure that we still have green mana up in case our opponent does play Act of Treason. Alright, opponent passes. There's Nissa. No reason to play her right now, I think. Let's see if our opponent has Celestial Flare. And looks like he does not. Alright. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand, which is actually not that great. We have Visionary and Vine, but already 4 lands, which is a bit much, so I think I'll try another one. Alright, this hand's a little awkward. No double black for Liliana, but I think we can keep it. We have some early plays with Reave Soul and Fleshbag, which should buy us enough time to find double black for Liliana. And another forest is not what we want to draw, also because if we draw too many forests, it could be that our Nissa's Pilgrimage don't have enough targets. And there we see Perilous Mirror, right on time. Not a card you want to see when you have Fleshbag in hand, but I guess we'll make it work. Let's see, I could actually just see Reave Souling this one. It's probably gonna get us sooner or later. Yeah, let's just get it out of here. Our opponent probably on some sort of blue-red artifacts deck. Which is not a matchup where Fleshbag Marauder is at its best. Alright, I don't mind seeing Bonded Construct. And Evolutionary Leap is quite good, but here I think I'll just play out our Liliana. And then next turn we can hopefully transform her when we play Fleshbag. And the red burn spells don't kill Liliana on their own, they do need some help. And opponents can't attack with the Bonded Construct alone, so has to pause a turn. And here we could attack, but if our opponent does have one of those cheap burn spells, then he gets to block and then kill Liliana. And I don't think I want to do that. So I think instead I'm just gonna play the Fleshbag Marauder and make our opponent sacrifice the Bonded Construct and transform Liliana that way. And then we can have some fun with the Evolutionary Leap next turn. So Liliana transforms. And I'm gonna plus her here, discarding a forest. Opponent discards a mongrel, alright. So another synergy card with artifacts. So the opponent must have, alright, that's not bad, Thopter Spy Network, but no artifacts in play currently. So as long as we keep our opponent off of artifact creatures, we should be good. Alright, Visionary is a good draw. So probably just gonna play Visionary and Leap and leave up green mana to activate it. And at that point I'm just gonna plus Liliana again, since I'm not in a hurry to get the Fleshbag back. So let's play Visionary first, see what we draw. And another Visionary. Yeah, I think I like playing Visionary instead of Leap. Or actually, it's pretty close, because if our opponent does have removal, then we just get to activate it. And I don't think the 1 damage is gonna make the difference. So I'll probably just play the Leap here. Attack. And I definitely don't mind discarding Forest. So let's play the Leap. And activate Liliana. Opponent discards another Foundry. Let's pass a turn, and here we could just sacrifice one of our creatures end of turn, but I don't think we're in a hurry to do so, or actually maybe we are now, as our opponent plays Whirler Rogue, which is the perfect follow-up to the Spy Network. So let's see. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna sacrifice the Elvish Visionary here. Hope to find one of our 5-drops. Instead, another Fleshbag is not the worst, actually. Alright, so we drew a land, which is not terrible. So let's see. I think I like attacking first here with our zombie. See how our opponent blocks, if he blocks at all. He does not. So let's see. We could minus Liliana getting back a Fleshbag. And then play Visionary plus Fleshbag. I think I like starting by playing the Visionary here. And draw another land. So yeah, it's between plussing Liliana, but her opponent has nothing to discard. Yeah, I think I like just getting 2 Fleshbags in play here. sacrifice Visionary, and minus Liliana, getting back another Fleshbag. And sacrifice the, I think, the zombie. And pause the turn. Our opponent does get another Thopter token here, but now he has to decide if he wants to pressure Liliana. Well, that's a pretty good draw. So probably ignores Liliana now. So he gets to draw a card with the Spy Network. No, instead he does go for Liliana. And our flashbags are looking pretty bad here, so I think I'll sacrifice one of them. Find an Outland Colossus, which is great. Alright, so we get to be pretty mana efficient here. We can Reave Soul the World Rogue, since at this point our opponent has way too many artifacts in play. Play Outland Colossus. And then we could minus Liliana, but I think plussing is better, since that leaves Liliana in play next turn. And we could attack, but I might just want to sacrifice the flashback to the leap next turn. Yeah, let's keep him on defense. So Thopter Spy Network does blank our Outland Colossus, which is the sad part. And our opponent, with yet another hit with the Thopter Engineer, will it be able to kill Liliana if he wants to? So our best bet is finding a Languish, which would also stop the Spy Network from going. So Liliana down, opponent does get to draw a card. And that's another land. So let's see, let's start by attacking. Opponent takes 3. Now we get to sacrifice Flashbag. Find another Colossus. Play Colossus. And pause the turn. So now our opponent pretty much has to leave back 2 Thopters every turn. So we do get to eventually beat the Spy Network, but it might be too late by then. Alright, Artificer will actually kill a Colossus here, so we can sacrifice it in response. Find a Visionary. Yeah, our opponent has drawn pretty well, I would say. Started off with some pretty janky cards, but double Whirler Rogue and Thopter Engineer combined with Spy Network is quite powerful. So we're down to 9. Find a Pilgrimage. I think I play this first, because I think the only way we can win is if we find a Languish. And by playing the Pilgrimage first, we remove some lands from our deck, so it's more likely that we actually hit a Languish. So let's go ahead and play the Visionary. And instead we find Woodland Bellower, which is probably not good enough. We can find a Reclamation Sage to kill the Spy Network here, but our opponent already has a lot of Thopters in play. So I think I do... Let's see, are we dead? 6, 7, 8. We're not dead. So I think I might as well try and find another Visionary or Gatecreeper Vine. Play it, find a swamp. And then we can block the Artificer and sacrifice it. And we're all in on finding Languish and hoping our opponent doesn't have a burn spell. Perilous Smear is actually not great, as the 2 damage might be able to just kill us if our opponent deals 6. We would be at 1 life, so not quite dead. Sacrifice or Vine. See what we get, another Visionary. Go to 3. Opponent draws another card. And a Guardians. I don't really care about, but it would survive a Languish, so it actually does keep netting our opponent a Thopter every turn. So we did find a Languish, and we also have a Bellower. So how do we sequence this correctly? I think I don't mind if our opponent kills our Outland Colossus here. Or actually maybe if we attack first, our opponent will block with the Perilous Mirror. Let's try that. Attack. Opponent does indeed block with Perilous Mirror. Goes to our face. And now we get to play Languish, then play Bellower, finding a way to destroy the Spy Network. Sounds like a plan. So those go away. Play the Bellower. And now it's actually interesting if we wanna kill the Guardians or the Spy Network. Because our opponent doesn't have any artifacts in play currently if we kill the Guardians. And the 06 Defender is actually relevant here because we have 14 power in play. So yeah, actually killing the Guardians makes more sense. Our opponent does get to activate the Foundry. And of course if he has a Twin Bolt here, we're just dead. Meteorite will also do it. So yeah, that's interesting. If we played Languish before attacking with the Outland Colossus, our opponent would have dealt 2 damage to the Outland Colossus, killing it and leaving us at 3 life. But I think making the Outland Colossus survive there was quite important. So it didn't quite make it, but a very close game. Yeah, I think the deck still performed quite well, so let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand. Elvish Visionary, the perfect card to have in your opener, because it could be anything. Let's play our gate and pause the turn. So yeah, hopefully we draw some finishers, because if we draw 2 lands with these Visionaries, we aren't doing a lot. Opponent on plains and a no 1-drop. Alright, there's a Colossus, so now we just need to hit our 5th land drop and we're golden. And there's a Fleshbag as well, which we can get back with our Gravedigger. A black-white and a Reave Soul on our Visionary, that's perfectly fine. So we're up a card in the exchange, and there we go, perfect. Pilgrimage, so next turn we can already deploy our Colossus. And everything's on schedule. We could consider first playing the Visionary in case our opponent has his own Fleshbag Marauder to try and kill the Colossus. But given that we have a Gravedigger in our hand, I don't think we need to do that. opponent plays a blood-cursed knight, so could very well have a suppression bonds to enchant our Outland Colossus. So maybe just going Visionary into Fleshbag is better. Yeah, probably. We can try and bait the suppression bonds and sacrifice the Elvish Visionary here. And this way we also play around our opponent having a Fleshbag. Opponent hits his 4th land drop and it's a Kythian's Irregulars. So this is a decent way to keep down our Outland Colossus, which I'm just gonna play here. But we can first attack with our Fleshbag. Play the Colossus, pass the turn, and now our opponent pretty much has to keep up double white every turn, which is not bad for us. Alright, that's a grasp on the Irregulars, so now it just gets to attack, tap the Colossus, get it renowned, and then still tap the Colossus on our turn. We do have a Reclamation Sage which could destroy the grasp if we want to, but I'm not sure if we need to do that right away. Let's see. Let's start by attacking. Opponent taps down a Colossus. And I think we do attack, since the Irregulars is renowned. So we can't trade with the Fleshbag. And yeah, I think I will play Reclamation Sage here, killing the enchantment. Not great if our opponent now plays Suppression Bonds. And let's also play out the Gatecreeper, getting another swamp. I guess we could have also searched for a gate, since we don't need the mana this turn. So 5 mana for the opponent. Tragic Arrogance would probably be the worst card for us, as that would leave us with a Gatecreeper Vine. Instead it's an Infernal Scarring. +2/+0, and when a creature dies you draw a card. Opponent attacks. I'm glad to just jump here. And now if our opponent taps down a Colossus, we still get to hit for 5. Which is fine. One interesting thing we could do is Reave Souling our own Fleshbag, then playing Gravedigger to get it back and then replay it. But the problem is that we can't do everything in the same turn, as we don't have enough mana to do that. But we could do that next turn, so I don't hate that plan actually. Because if we play the Reave Soul and Gravedigger this turn, then our opponent sees it coming and can just play around it by playing another creature. But if it just passes here, then we could actually try and do that. Opponent attacks. And he could keep up double activation here. Instead it's a Token Free Blade, so now our Fleshbag plan looks a lot worse. We could still try and trade the Fleshbag Marauder. Let's see. Our opponent taps down a Colossus. And our opponent taps down the Reclamation Sage. Alright. So let's hope our opponent blocks here. Our opponent does. And now we get to get him. Get back Fleshbag. Play Fleshbag. And I think we sacrifice the Reclamation Sage here. Opponent gets to draw a card, we play Guildgate and pass. This does leave us with no zombies in the graveyard in case we draw Cruel Revival. Alright, our opponent has another one. So taps down a Colossus, we can attack for 3. Well, there's another Fleshbag. Let's play it right now. Opponent taps, we attack for 5. And I am sacrificing this one. So yeah, our opponent's entire game plan was kind of warped around keeping down the Outland Colossus, which gave us a lot of freedom in navigating this particular game. Which doesn't mean the Irregulars is a bad card. But it is quite mana intensive to keep activating it over and over. Alright, our opponent enchanting our own creature. And that actually doesn't work because it's giving the creature the ability, so even if this creature dies, it's we that get to draw a card. So the AI actually doesn't quite understand how that interaction works. Play Liliana, kill this one, and attack with everyone. Sweet. Alright, I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day.